I think sales was natural to me. But never in my last 10 to 15 years of my life I've ever missed a target. I think that's the trick where you're able to translate something into dollars. Comfort zone is where all the anomaly lies. That comfort zone also, in some way, okay, dilutes your personal branding as an individual. Analytics is all about what you make out of the past that can tell the future.
Hey, you are listening to Dream 100 Business Show podcast with Savita Husamane. Our mission at Dream 100 Business Show is to help business owners move to the next level in their personal growth and business growth brand journey. In this episode, we talk to Mr. Sanjay Rao, who is the founder of AxionConnect Info Solutions Private Limited. Now let's get to the story of the person behind the brand. Sanjay Rao built a thriving business brand, AxionConnect Info Solutions, without any prior experience, guidance, or capital in business. I was also extremely curious to know how he did it. He says he had a natural flair for selling, which started during his high school days when he used to sell books and flip miniature model cars for cash. How's that? He always dreamt of creating employment, but had to start off with being an employee. He quit his job with no plans for the future. That too, when he was doing extremely well in his corporate career. So let's hear it out from him, how he rose from that path of zero to hero in entrepreneurship right here, right now on Dream 100 Business Show. So let's get started. Welcome to Dream 100 Business Show, Mr. Sanjay. It's truly an honor and pleasure to have you here on our show.
Same here, Savita. Thank you for inviting me.
So awesome. So usually, how do your friends describe you as a person?
I think my friends like to have me around. A lot of people have different definitions. Certainly, they definitely look out for me if they need any help, especially with respect to any of their work and businesses. And of course, as a friend, I always believe that you have to stand by people irrespective of the situations and what challenges pose to you. So therefore, they would like to kind of hang around with me. And of course, I do kind of a little bit party and stuff like that. I don't really have a lot of friends, but very few, but they're very, very close.
Awesome. So do they have any nicknames for you?
I go more by the name Sanju, my very common name outside my professional environment. And sometimes I'm called Baba also because I do, a bit of a lot of gyan building and, for philosophy sometimes, therefore, these are two popular names that I go by.
So nowhere connected to Sanju Baba of Bollywood.
No, not really. I think the philosophy is the same, but Sanju is more from the family side, and a lot of people call me Baba from my childhood days and from my personal setup. These names really happened much earlier to the movie.
Okay, awesome. It was just to gain an insight of the other side of you. So, like, as you said, you came down to Bangalore and you had your education here. And then after your education, you started off in a corporate environment.
That's right.
Yeah. So once you entered into the corporate environment, how did that build you as a person, like your values and your shaping up as a personality? Can you give some insights about it?
Right. Of course, I had my own share of those ups and downs from adapting to, academic life to a corporate life. Again, that was a fair bit of learning for me. I got into a background where it was a non-technical role. My role was very much customer oriented. In fact, if I can recollect, my first work with Rico was to be as a service engineer, and I was trained to go and service photocopier machines. That was my first job, and this required a lot of different type of skill set to be able to do that. The subsequent roles also I took up in corporate were more of business operations and sales oriented and service oriented. So therefore, it took a little while to kind of have that professional polish that is required in every activity that you do. It took a little while, but I think I eventually kind of settled down. For me, that was a hop between the non-corporate to corporate.
Okay, when you say that you were chosen as a service engineer and then slowly you were moved to sales also, usually technical persons don't fit very well with that idea of going into sales and marketing. So, did you have any personal inhibitions while taking up sales?
I think sales was natural to me. I think that is one thing I thank God even till date. I think that is
Mhm.
something which I didn't really have to try too hard. One thing I would say, of course, my ex-employers would not be happy hearing this, but
Mhm.
whenever I used to go for service, I used to end up selling something new to them, to end up selling a new machine or a new version or a new hardware or something like that. And I was really poor at service. So most of my service ratings were very bad, and the machine used to break down very frequently wherever I used to go. But then eventually I started selling more. So that kind of clicked in me and said, hey, I think I'm not really built for service. This is something I know better. I'm good at interpersonal skills, communication, and I kind of have a tendency to have a good rapport with people. So I think that was working in our favor. And since I'm kind of not zero technical, but at least I can articulate technology, it kind of helped me to kind of position things in a way that even a common man would understand. So I think the trick was, if you can translate something which is very, very difficult or complex or not easy to understand in very layman terms to somebody who can really follow you, I think that's the trick where you're able to translate something into dollars. So therefore, I think that part kind of came very natural to me, and then therefore, even our teams were happy to move us there, and I took up that role post my service.
Wow. Usually, what we hear is that the best sales guys are the ones who are good at entrepreneurship.
I think every entrepreneur has to be knowing sales, but not necessarily that every salesperson can be an entrepreneur. But I think as when you move transition from sales to entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur journey is far more different from just a transaction. The entrepreneur journey is encompassing a larger vision, more in terms of identifying a certain business opportunity, taking the risk to be able to build certain products and service, to be able to service that particular segment, to be able to monetize that over a period of time, to able to sustain the business over a period of time, identifying the right process and policies and pricing structure to be able to build that business, to be able to sell the value proposition to the client from a sales perspective, and also deliver it simultaneously. At the same time, you also look at certain aspects of social impact to the society in terms of employment creation, in terms of generating taxes for the government, and creating exports in terms of bringing in dollar to the country. So there are various different impacts an entrepreneur sees, beyond sales. So therefore, like I said, every entrepreneur has to be sales driven, but not necessarily every sales guy can be an entrepreneur.
Wow, well said. So, here, when you made a decision, was the decision easy for you because you were in a comfortable environment? You were doing very well, and it was like second nature to you. What actually triggered you to move from that comfort zone to a productive zone or a creative zone, but a non revenue generating zone? See, business and entrepreneurship is one area where you don't get that kind of luxurious corporate cushioned environment, the luxury of a salary every month. Here the struggle is different. So what triggered you to make that decision?
You're right. I think the comfort zone is where all the anomaly lies. Because I think once you are in that comfort zone, you start taking things for granted. Okay. And eventually what happens is, over a period of time, and in my personal experience, that comfort zone also in some way, okay, dilutes your personal branding as an individual. And I think that is a learning, when I was transitioning from work to an entrepreneur journey. I say this because when you're associated with a certain X organization and when you're going out and meeting customers, you're representing someone, right? You're
Mhm.
representing a set of services, you're representing a culture, you're representing an MNC, their setup and their set of values and their R&D effort and stuff like that. And therefore, a lot of people identify you with those values, which are not necessarily what your values could be and what your individual views could be or what your individual thoughts are. It's just a job. But then when you kind of step out of that zone, you realize, it's very, very different. And I think why people buy is not because you were selling them, it is because you were selling something that they liked. So these are two very different things. And for me, it was not natural. I mean, I was a little bit of a rebellion in my corporate days. And of course, I was a very, very successful salesperson. And never in my last 10 to 15 years of my life, I've ever missed a target. And I think in any organization I've worked for, I think I've always qualified for the President's Club. I've traveled to many countries, more than 10 to 15 countries as a part of those award functions. Always met and exceeded my targets. So therefore, you get a sense of achievement and fulfillment. But at the same time, it also kind of creates challenges for you within the corporate structure, and not necessarily everybody who is extremely productive or extremely valuable to the organization can stick around for too long. And there are different challenges that play around in the corporate world. And I think that is something which I did not take well. And you can say that I was not mature enough to kind of deal with some of these corporate nuances. And therefore, I had to quit. But then it was not I quit because I had something plan B or plan C. I mean, I just did it because I didn't feel like it was not right for me to be there at that point in time, and therefore I quit.
So it was more of heart oriented than head oriented.
It was absolutely hard oriented. Of course, when I quit, I didn't have any other job, and I did not have any entrepreneur plans. I did not have any backup with me, and I think it was the heat of the moment. Sometimes I feel it happened for the right thing if I look at it now. But certainly at that time, it was very tough and difficult to deal with the situation. And yes, it was a hard-driven decision. I just came out having nothing in hand. That's typically how I exited the corporate world.
So then now, how did you build the business?
The initial challenge of how you identify yourself with these things, then that's where your actual journey starts. I think more than looking at entrepreneur journey and stuff, I think it is important to kind of reevaluate your situation where you are. And especially when people are moving from corporate world to entrepreneurship or any journey for that matter, a very strong introspection is required in terms of who you are. What is, as an individual, what do you want? What do you want to achieve? What your real skills are. And I think that's where, you have to kind of strip yourself to the bare minimum, to the bare metal, to the last thread to see who you are as an individual and what you really can do and what you're really capable of. And are you prepared for that journey? And those are the questions you ask yourself before you start doing something new. And that's when you realize that I've been living in some fancy world and I think this is a real life. And when you go out and start meeting people, that kind of amplifies more, saying it's not good enough. And I think that part of me took about 4 to 6 months to settle down. And then eventually, of course, I had a whole set of people I knew because I was in the corporate world for so long. And I think a few of them helped me kind of consuming some sort of service from me. And then I started providing some kind of a resource, some kind of a small service that way. And then that's where it kind of started off with the entrepreneur stuff. But generally, that was a period where, it was more of your introspection and individual course correction.
So that is where the vision was also formed.
Yes, and I think somewhere I felt if having put 20 years of your corporate life, and when you come out and people do not identify you as an individual, what have you earned? And that's a very big question I had. And I think that's when I decided that we should, for me, it was purely driven by, I will build an organization which will clearly articulate my value, my philosophy, the way I wanted to do things. When people walk into office, I want them to be happy, give them a happy environment, give them a culture which is more inclusive, look at management style, which is more distributed and democratic than more of imperialistic and more of, self-driven. So a lot of different things I had in mind. And as an individual, a lot of the thoughts that I had as a part of this shift, I wanted to kind of imbibe that into a culture and build an organization that really would reflect those values. And I think that kind of gave me the motivation to have a vision for an organization where, irrespective of size, turnover, bottom line, build an organization that people would be happy to be associated with, happy to come to office, feel safe, and of course, if you're happy, you generally also contribute more. You'll be more productive. I think that's kind of the offshoot of what my vision and philosophy of the company took place at that time. And I think until now, I've been kind of constantly trying to ensure that doesn't change.
Wow. So, how much freedom do you give your team members to fail?
I think that's the most important question. I think that's the most critical aspect of team building and imbibing trust with your team. But eventually, I think end of the day, the fear of failure is what makes human more averse towards taking risk or averse towards doing something new or innovative. And I generally don't want to kill that. So therefore, for us in our organization, you can do pretty much any mistake as long as you acknowledge, yes, that mistake happened, and we always help you rectify that. But again, yes, that freedom is there full time for them to go and try and do something. And if that doesn't work out, it's okay, it's fine. We can try something else. And I think that ability gives them to be innovative and do few different things at few different point in time.
So, what has been the biggest learning for you in this entire process?
Well, there are many. To name a few, for me, I think human capital is very, very critical. How you work with them, how you deal with them, what kind of people you hire, and what kind of people you train and keep them is very, very important. And I think that goes beyond saying it's been said through ages. You're always known by the people that you're surrounded with. And I think that still holds good today. I might be an entrepreneur, I can do things alone, but still, it's impossible to do without a team. And I think if that team is not good or well equipped, or does not share the same value or philosophy, then you will find cracks at some point in time. So therefore, for us, my learning is human touch points and human involvement as a human is also equally important as being involved as a part of your looking at it as just a job or a project or something like that. I think that aspect of engagement with human capital or employees, or you may call it that way. So that engagement is very critical, and I think that should sustain. And that's one learning where I've realized that what may come. We always tell our managers and downstream to ensure that even sometimes, if required, go beyond the professional realm to help them out personally too. Because if they're not personally happy, if they're not personally in a place situation that helps them to contribute more, what's the point? Somebody's close person is not feeling well, or somebody needs some monetary assistance, somebody needs a hybrid work environment till such time they settle at home. A lot of different things that make it far more easier for employees to deal with and to balance out some of the home and work aspect. We are very, very flexible and sensitive that way. So I think that is one of the first learning I've gained out of this whole journey with. The second is always own your customer. We are in an ecosystem and situation today where we have so many different partnerships and leverages, and we have teams, and then we have a customer service team, and then there is a HR team, and then there is employee, there are project managers, so many different touch points. Unless you are personally connected to the customer in a certain way, they identify you not just as a company, but also as a set of individuals who are associated with them for their success. I think that goes a long way in helping and sustaining a very healthy business in terms of revenue. And so always own your customer, never let just one touch point be there and then you finish a delivery and you're gone, or you just show up and there's an escalation. No, I mean, it has to be a continuous process. And I think that's very critical aspect that I've learned, to also show up when you're not required is the most important thing too, when you're in this journey. I think the third most important lesson I've learned is the financial discipline. There is no bigger discipline that can get you through if you do not know how to manage your finances. I think whether whoever an entrepreneur he is, I mean, as long as he is he has a handle on his expenses and sales and knows a bit of finance, I think that goes a long way in paying off in terms of your company's profitability, bottom line, and stuff. So I think these are three things: human capital, which is more internal oriented, how it's like your health of a body, how you
Mm.
take care of how you take care of yourself, is a what a company to you. And then how you interact with people is the client, basically how you interact and how you keep them, and what kind of effort you're putting to ensure that they meet their goals for what they've hired us to do is the second. And the third is the raw material required to make these two transactions happen, which is the cash and the money. I think if these three fundamental blocks are in the right place, I think it's very, very little chance that you will fail.
Wow, huge insights. Let's take a hypothetical business which is running. And this business has been in existence, let's say, for the past 20 or 25 years, and they have a huge database ranging from 3,000 plus to 10,000 plus customers. Because, like as you said, returning customers might not be the same. Sometimes it might be just a one-time customer, but in their huge database, they will have that as a customer noted down. So when they have around 10,000 customers, how should they analyze that data, and how can you people help them so that they can increase their business revenue in the forthcoming years? Is there any insight on that?
Yeah, if an organization of that size, I'm assuming that it will have certainly the four fundamental building blocks in terms of business process. One is which is your sales, operations, and sales.
Mm,
The second one being HR, human
mm,
resource and human capital. The
mm,
third being finance, which is compliance and finance.
mm,
And the fourth being, your inventory management and your supply chain. Okay.
mm,
Now, if you're able to, and we need to look into what kind of automation they have done so far. So obviously, a client of this size, I'm
mm,
assuming, will have certain software or a CRM or
mm,
some kind
mm,
of enterprise resource planning or a solution that will help them organize these things in a certain way. But I think analytics goes beyond what you store and retrieve. Analytics is all about what you make out of the past that can tell the future.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
So in that aspect, a lot of services we have done looks at what are the different patterns in data for the last historical 3, 4 years or 10 years. That's
mm,
typically how we work with banks. So typically our expertise today, one of our core expertise is managing risk for credit for a financial institution,
mm, mm,
where we go in and we look at millions of records and identify certain patterns in data that can tell how a certain individual or a profile will behave in the near term of 6 to 12 months, whether it's in terms of marketing, whether will he pay an EMI, or what kind of account management behavior he might have. It's very difficult to kind of track individuals when you become a certain scale and size. So therefore, you have to translate them into certain type of profiles. We would call it in analytics, and
mm,
these profiles have certain behavior that they exhibit from their past patterns. And you should look at what kind of profile of customers or segment of industry that you're going after as your vision in the next 3, 4 years, and see what kind of shift is there. For example, you might be addressing a certain urban population as a part of your old business, but
mm,
then with the internet penetration into rural, you might think now it's time that I also start diversifying into the rural segment.
mm,
Obviously, if you see business wise, the profile of data that you've had in the past is very different from the profile of data that you're going to have in the future. But then data talks. There could be
mm,
certain profiles that will give you insights of what could be done better to capitalize on those segments for the rural or anything per se as such. So therefore, apart from storing data, the patterns will tell you what kind of behavior you had in the past, to a level where you can identify to a customer. You can say this customer is a 10-year-old customer, this customer belongs to this particular industry, the total revenue from this customer for the last 10 years was 1.5 crores, it was the frequency of purchase, this was the pattern of purchase, these were the seasons in which he purchased more, These are the seasons where he did not purchase more. These are the times where he paid on time. These are the months he did not pay on time.
Wow.
So these very minute data patterns will tell
Mm,
you about a customer. So let's say this customer that I just gave an example is
mm,
profile A, and
mm,
there's another customer profile B. He gives you a business of 1 crore, which is less than the profile A,
mm,
but he has been consistently paying on time. He has been consistently buying the same product with you on a certain interval, which is very predictable. He comes from a background, from an industry which is core industry.
mhm,
There are so many different smaller attributes. So how would you define which profile is better, profile A or profile B?
mhm,
Obviously, when you look at it from a pivot on an Excel sheet, you feel, oh, customer A is good. He has
mm,
done more business with us. In our terms, we call it a score, a customer
mhm,
score in analytics. So we give him a score of, let's say, 0.5 out of 1. Okay. And then there's
mhm,
customer profile B, who has done lesser business. He is more profitable, because he's paying you on
mm,
time, and cash is king. So if you get paid on time, if the customer is paying you
mhm.
on time, obviously he has to be given better weightage, and his score is 0.6 versus 1. So that is
Wow.
the kind of scoring we do. That's the kind of pattern recognition we do to identify one profile versus another, because there are so many different customers and so many of them are doing business and everybody is doing good business. But how do you
Mhm,
identify which profile is what? So when you
mhm,
know the profile B is a good profile, then when you plan your business strategy for the next 3 years, you go after a profile B. Then you look at your product, your customer mix. Out of my 10,000 customer, how many customers are of profile B? How many customers are of profile A? How many customers are of profile C? This is called the risk mix, where you
mhm,
see how your risk is distributed across your customer ecosystem. And then when you analyze and go deeper, you get a lot of different insights. I'm just giving a very, very hypothetical
mhm,
level example. Our analysis go far more deeper into
mm,
to even identifying, is he married? What pin code does he live in? Is that pin code in a good area or not? We go
mhm,
to that level of macro to identify a profile of an individual. And I think these insights will help business to kind of to understand how to minimize the riskier ones, walk away from those customers, or minimize the mix of those contribution in your ecosystem, and then how to acquire these profile B type of customers, and also look at ideal profiles C, which could be a very, very ideal profile. Go after them, and you create campaigns to specifically target those people. You create policies and process and products to go and attract those people. So those kind of things happen. For example, when a bank launches a credit card, well, you would have seen, this is a travel card. You would have seen this is a hospitality card, or you will see this is a big basket or a grocery card. So why do they do that, right? I mean, you might think, what's the point? Credit card is a credit card, debit card is a debit
mm,
card. How does it matter? No, it does matter a lot, because when you look at the profile, and somebody who's a very frequent traveler, he has a tendency to use that card more. And the more you use the card, the more business the bank gets. The individual also gets that benefit of a lounge or access and stuff like that. And therefore, these do exist. A lot of mid-sized to small-sized companies can explore analytics. They can start with a very small journey of using data to look at their historical past, build some ratios. A lot of CAs today are becoming analytical savvy. A lot of
wow.
CAs will help you to build those ratios and benchmark that with industry standards. And then eventually you can start doing some predictive analytics as you go forward. I think a lot of tools are available now. Open source tools are available for you to do them. A lot of platforms on the cloud like Azure and AWS provide those infrastructure for you to do those analytics. And I think the cost to do analytics, what was there 10 years back, has gone down by at least 10x. It is far more affordable today to
Oh,
do analytics. Since I've been in analytics for the last 20 years, I always encourage people to at least adopt in some way or the other. Even if it's an Excel sheet, you sit down
mm,
once in a month, you look at your balance sheet from an Excel perspective, from your business standpoint, and then you seek some help from service providers to kind of see how that can be further enriched to give you insights. I would highly recommend them to especially the mid-size and the smaller size companies who may not have thought of doing this because they might have thought it's analytics, it's too big, it's too complex. Well, that's
Exactly.
not the case. Well, that's not really the case anymore.
Yeah, because as you were describing, well, I could actually see that it can help lot of businesses, because businesses don't know to which customer segment they have to target, because they feel that B2B, I'm earning revenue, but profitability might be less. B2C, they might be earning less revenue, but their profitability is high. So I was just thinking on those lines. Maybe every business should actually use this to see how they can progress in the direction of their growth. This is really amazing. Mm. And now I just want to understand if businesses, because I see even traditional businesses who have been in existence for 25 to 30 years, if they are not using this data, to what extent is their growth getting hampered? Just you can just give me an idea about it.
I think I really cannot answer the question directly. My answer and response to that would be, if you're not able to see what's coming your way, if you do not understand the change in buying patterns of your customer, the change in the customer's ecosystem, if you don't see those early in its life cycle, if you don't identify those bottlenecks, or I would say changes, then you're a big risk of losing the leadership position. I mean, it's just a matter of time that somebody else will come and just build something which is more relevant and at a cheaper cost, and then you're out in a frenzy. That's my response.
Yeah, I think that answer is very, very relevant, as we have seen in many cases. So, having your wife also in the same business, so how do you manage the relationship personally and professionally?
From a relationship standpoint, what happens is we have very clear, very thick walled bifurcations in terms of our activities. Mine is completely business, sales, finance, and customer oriented. She supports me with a set of vendors, both employees as well as outsourced vendors, who support on the P&L, the compliance, ensuring your taxes are paid on time, your filing is done on time, your statutory dues are being taken care of. These are completely two separate areas where there is no conflict. We do have a lot of discussion in terms of business decisions that we make and the investments that we make. But that once it's decided and it's implemented, we don't question that. We don't open that box again. I mean, what's done is done. And if it's a crime, it's a crime. Okay, it happened, happened. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. We don't go back and we don't dig old corpses and hey, I told you that, I told you this, whatever it is. I think once we take a call and put it in action, I think that's rolled out. Whatever results it gives, it's fine. We just deal with it.
What has been your biggest compliment from your clients?
One thing I've certainly heard, Sanjay, we do this because of you, because we know you will deliver no matter what. And I
Wow.
think I've delivered a lot. And of course, I deliver because of my team. I mean, I take that compliment not just for me, but also for my team, because I'm not an individual. When I make a commitment, there are team who work with me to help me deliver. It's a collective compliment.
Wow. So, what would be your message to upcoming and aspiring business people?
I've been there, so I can tell you there's always a conflict of heart and mind. But in the initial phase, there's a lot of heart and mind. What would you want to do first? Because there's so many different priorities that you have as an entrepreneur in the beginning of your journey. You do not know which way to go. Although you may have investors, you may have co-founders. There are a lot of conflicting ideas, constructive ideas. There's so many things on the table. And I think you do not know which way to go. Sometimes one looks good than the other, and your mind tells something, your heart tells something. I think the best part about entrepreneurship is to take that risk, is to take that leap of faith. If you are committed to it, like by heart you feel, no matter what, this will work. Doesn't look good on paper. It doesn't look, financially feasible, looks too big to achieve. Just do it. Don't get bogged down. Don't feel, I'm one person standing alone. So even if you're one person standing alone, it's good. As long as there's one person standing alone, it will survive through you. So I think if you have that leap of faith in your heart, and just take your heart, just do it. And I think somewhere or other it will pay off.
Amazing. Wow. People want to connect with you. How do they reach you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on my personal email. It is sanjay27rao@yahoo.com. Usually do expect maybe a day or so delay, but yeah, you can reach out to me on that personally. Professionally, I can be reached on info@axionconnect.com. That's my official email ID where my team will get in touch with you ASAP to see what we can do for you. So these are the two touch points that you can have to reach out to us.
Great. Wonderful. I'm sure this conversation can go on, and there are a lot of golden nuggets which we can get from you. But nevertheless, it's been wonderful chatting with you and gaining these wonderful insights, which holds good for any size of business and any domain of business, is my understanding. Is it?
Yes, yes, that's true.
Mhm. So thank you so much for taking out time and sharing your wonderful journey as well as your amazing, amazing learnings in your journey.
Thank you so much, Savita, for having me as well.
I thank Sanjay Rao for sharing his most vulnerable moments in his personal and professional journey from the bottom of my heart. Sanjay's journey teaches us that entrepreneurship can start at a young age and that success comes with hard work and perseverance. His natural selling skills helped him to build a successful business, and he continues to live his dream today of creating employment to more than 100 plus people in Mumbai, Bangalore, and UAE. So, guys, don't miss out on the exciting opportunity of reaching out to him and learn how you can scale your business to the next level using your existing customer data. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Dream 100 Business Show. We at Dream 100 Business Show help business owners in creating an audio profile for their business and thereby a personal brand so that they can reach out to new audiences locally and globally. All you have to do is click on the link in the show notes and join the Telegram group so that you'll be able to connect and interact with other listeners, and write to us if you want to get featured as a podcast guest. We are waiting to hear from you. Thank you for being such a wonderful listener. Thank you.